Sonny, can you hear me?
Hi, Commissioner. We sure can. We're just waiting on getting quorum.
Okay, thank you. Didn't think it was working.
Thank you.
Welcome, everybody, to the Palatka Community Redevelopment Agents meeting on February 12th, 2024. We're going to call this meeting to order. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Bourne, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to
The republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, okay, I didn't know he was here. Sorry. Now we're going to stand for the invocation. Pastor Mulberry.
Father, again, thank you for your loving kindness and for the multitude of your tender mercy. God, we thank you for this opportunity to come together once again. We pray, God, your blessing upon this leadership. We pray that thou would bless the work of their hands, God, as we move forward this city for your glory. Thank you because we believe in what you're doing for us. We thank you for the promise that you made towards us. Continue to bless us, Lord, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Can we have the roll call, please, Ms. Krantz?
Certainly. Commissioner Tammy McCaskill?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Justin Campbell's not present for the record. Commissioner Will Jones?
Present for the
Commissioner-
record.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Rufus Morum?
present.
Mayor Robbie Correa?
Present.
Commissioner Terry Turner,
Present.
Representative Teresa Jackson.
Present.
We have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to approval of minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes for December 11th, 2023?
Motion to accept minutes as written.
Have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Thank you. We're going to open the floor up to public comments. Is there anybody here for public comments? Seeing none, we'll close the floor to public comments. Regular business, discussion recommendation, allocation of Hammer Call, 429 Kirby Street, sale proceeds. Ms. Cotty?
The last meeting we had, which was December 11th, it was requested that I go back into, grant more
I'm
information.
sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So it was requested that I perform more procedures, try to gather more information. And actually 3 days later, I was able to complete that assignment. What I was able to perform was we identified all of the CAFRs for the years of 2001 through 2006, which were actually the relevant years. That allowed confirmation of the loan balance being reflected on the CAFA as well. It was reflected as a payable from the Downtown Redevelopment Fund. And I did attach that in the agenda. I was also able to trace to the recognition of the debt service payments within each CAFA for each of those years per the auditors retained at that time. An amortization schedule was prepared based upon the loan of the $59,000, which was secured from SunTrust at the rate of 4.5% over a 60-month payment term, and also reconciled the amortization schedule to the CAFRs. So that was enough procedures to confirm that the balance of the loan was correct and that there was in fact a loan. However, as I reviewed the CAFRs, I was able to see that the auditors reflected all TIF districts under the title of the Downtown Redevelopment Fund. There was no reference to a South Historic District or anything of that nature. In conclusion, my opinion is that the loan payments based upon the CAFRs reflected that the total payments were made, loan payments were made by the Downtown Redevelopment Fund. The loan payable balance stated on the CAFRs reconciled to the amortization schedule as well. So based upon that is my conclusion that Downtown Redevelopment Fund is entitled to receive the net proceeds of the property sale. However, the general fund did expend $7,532, and as such, it should be considered to reimburse the general fund that amount of money. The amount that we're talking about, the total amount of the sale, I believe, was $139,440 was received as net proceeds of the loan sale of the property sale in November 2023. What this means is that $131,908 should be allocated to the Downtown Redevelopment Fund, and that's pretty much what that means.
Thank you.
Okay.
You have a question? Okay, that's a question. Anyone have a question of Ms. Carter?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that said, is there a discussion recommendation about how to allocate those funds? Obviously, they're going to the Downtown Redevelopment Fund, but it's not specified South or Central TIF. So would that automatically mean it goes to the Central TIF in that regard?
No, specifically the recommendation is to go to the South TIF.
Okay,
In the past, they just referenced the TIF funds as the
the
downtown
general.
redevelopment. Yes.
okay, with that said,
I do have another question.
Go ahead.
So was there any cost for general maintenance that we used to do for that building prior that should be recouped by the city? That came from the general funds, or I know that in the past, Mr. Cutright was responsible, or his department, maybe even before him, for the upkeep when we had to do some repairs to that building. So is that recoupable?
Yeah, I can speak to that, Commissioner. So historically, we did budget somewhere in the ballpark of $3,000 to $5,000 annually for just general maintenance on Hammock Hall.
There were also South TIF funds used in the past to rehab a little bit of that inside. Do we use South TIF funds? Because we did do some work inside, and South TIF funds were used for that, for floor, interior painting, et cetera, to build that little closet in the past.
It's always been a mixture. You know, general fund covered some of the maintenance costs. South TIF would cover some of the improvement costs, and even the SHNA would contribute funding from time to time since they were the primary occupants of the building.
Thank you. So again, based on that information and discussion, the thoughts to allocate it to some repairs and restoration of Tillman House, which sorely needs it, which is going to be the next item on the agenda anyway. So we can segue right into that. Tillman House, 324 River Street. The pictures are in your packet. You see the work that needs to be done. In the past, Jonathan, you can correct me if I'm wrong about this total, South TIF funds were allocated to Tillman House. In my mind, it was over time, approximately 260,000, but I could be wrong on that.
There were significant funds allocated, be it from the general and South TIF, and the city also secured a Department of State Historic Preservation grant back in the early 2000s. But I believe the best course of action here is if you agree with the recommendation to recognize the revenues and allocate them to the South TIF fund, that would be a motion. And then there's a separate discussion item, Mayor, that you're talking about, which is potentially using those revenues and authorizing a budget amendment for the purpose of making the repairs to the Tillman House.
Okay. So with that said,
Well, I'll make a motion that we, place the funds in the, South TIF that's allocated as such, the 131,000,
900.
908, am I right?
908 to the, downtown, South, TIF fund, and also the 7,532 to the general fund for the city.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Discussion.
But we had a discussion.
Yeah, need a second before
Yeah,
we're gonna move on to this.
Yeah. Do we have a second?
Yep.
Okay, I guess the motion.
And
passed.
I'll second for the sake of a discussion.
Okay, now we can move on to
Okay.
discussion. Go ahead, Commissioner
I'm
McCaskill.
sorry. Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is, it was 139,440 minus the 7,532. So with that being said, it was the 131,908. So Commissioner Borum, what will your motion just be? The 131,908 going back to the TIF district, and then the 7,532.
That was
What
the
was your
that was
Okay.
the recommendation based on what our finance
Okay.
director and staff allocated. Now, if there's any additional discussion, I'd be happy. I mean, I'm just going based off of what we have here, but if there's
Yeah.
anything additional we need to discuss, I'd like to.
No, I just couldn't. I was making sure I heard that. So I will second that. I'm sorry.
It's already been seconded, but if for clarification purposes, there was just a general reference to the TIF, we need to clarify if that's the South TIF
South,
or the downtown redevelopment. Okay.
South,
The motion is for the
South
South.
TIF.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Thank you. On to the next portion of the discussion recommendation, Tillman House 324 River Street repair.
I believe Ms. Krantz is going to pull up some pictures. Thank you, Ms. Krantz. So if you could just kind of scroll through slowly. These are representative of the siding damage at the Tillman House located at the southern end of the riverfront. So obviously we've got significant siding damage that has to be replaced. That's a specific type of siding. There is glazing, waterproofing that needs to be done around the windows, and obviously painting of the structure. Right now, that is the limits of the renovation, but it's estimated in excess of $100,000. This is an eligible expense per your CRA plan. It is within the South TIF district. So this is something that you can do. And it's our recommendation that if you want to see these repairs happen, that you could reallocate a good portion of that $131,000 to this project. Otherwise, this will become a discussion item for the city commission and how to appropriate general fund revenues for the repair of this building.
Commissioner Borman?
Yes, on those repairs, now, those repairs are just from the time we've been discussing years, like last 4 or 5 years, in terms of repairs on the various buildings that the city owned, but that's pretty significant.
Mhm.
And to have these structures going forward, I don't know if the city can continue to pay out this type of money, especially when you're talking about 125,000 just for this. Does that complete everything about the building itself, or because is there any more things that we don't know?
So the joke is historic buildings are kind of like scabs. The more you pick at them, the more they bleed. So this scope of work is going to get the outside of the envelope whole. But I can tell you, as a previous owner of a historic building built in the 1920s, just down the block, previous owner, the work never ends. So with something like this, with a historic structure, you need to plan on tinting it every 7 to 10 years. You need to plan on painting it every 7 to 10 years. You need to plan on redoing the glazing around the windows every 7 to 10 years. It's just the nature of having something like that.
It is, because I'm on my 10-year mark and I have to do that at my house. It's just the nature of historic structures, and this is one. We can discuss other things about this property in the future, but right now, as the stewards of this property, we need to maintain it. And so this would be coming out of the South TIF monies, not the general fund, if we agree to that, but it does need to be done. It is our responsibility and obligation.
What do you use that building for currently?
It's currently leased to the Palatka Art League.
Do they make any revenue off of it at all?
Mr. Cutright, you want to speak to that?
They are a nonprofit. They do have events and they do have sales. I don't think they make a ton of revenue. Mr. Cutright?
Yes, Eddie Cutright, Community Affairs Director. We created a lease with them a couple of years ago, and they actually give us $300 a month to kind of offset some low-level maintenance to the building. They do several different arts and crafts events that they do bring in a little money, but overall, I think the $300 that we get a month is the only kind of revenue that we get from them.
They also did, primarily through donations, cover the cost of tenting it a couple of years ago as well, just to give them credit for that, which is a significant amount of money.
So related to this, and I don't want to steal your thunder for his report, but this is one of the buildings that the city owns that we have cited ourselves for a code violation. And at the same time, we're going around and in each TIF district, we're doing inspections. As you know, the main purpose of a CRA district is the removal of blight. This is a blight, and we're trying to set a good example. This building just happens to be one of those where the nature of the damage is extensive. The other buildings, like across the street, you've already budgeted for out of the general fund. And I think some of the other citations, which is a later report, not tonight, are minor, pressure washing and painting, things of that nature. Yeah.
How much did we budget for? I'm sorry, Matt. How much
That's
did we,
okay, Commissioner McCaskill, go ahead.
how much did we budget for the building across the street, Jonathan, if I may?
Part of this discussion.
That was in excess
that's
of
okay.
150,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, I know we're trying to remove blight, but most buildings that we're using those funds for removing blight, they're normally they contribute to the tax base. Whereas this is a city-owned property and we're taking those funds and then so I just would like to see a little bit more contributions coming in. I mean, from my standpoint, we're spending 125, or we are expecting to spend 125,000. It could be more as you continue to move the scab off the source. And so we don't know what that number is. And so how do we know the health of that structure in terms of if we start digging in, what is the, I guess, the overall health of that building? And are we really, spending these, or what kind of good return on our investment we're going to get, as opposed to we dump the money in and then we don't know the viability of the structure?
So board members, really as the CRA board, if you're not interested in this, the only other matter before you would be allocating or budgeting those additional revenues. It's not advisable and it's against statute that you hold that large of a contingency in reserve. So if you could give some direction to staff as to where you'd like to see that additional $125,000 allocated, if not the Tillman House, that will at least result in a productive result from this discussion. Because what you recommend today will be going in front of the city commission next week for ratification. And we can speak to some of the other budgeted line items that you have for your work program this year, if you'd like, or if you have additional questions for Tillman House, we're here as well.
However, we do own that building as the city. The CRA funds are intended to eliminate blight and revitalize. We have an obligation to maintain our structures, which we've been negligent about over the years. And the money just came in from Hammond Hall from that sale. This building, the structure, not that it's a discussion for this time and place, but it is on the surplus real estate list. Is that correct, Mr. Griffith?
No, this was not
Okay,
identified
not.
for potential
Okay.
surplus.
And again, that can be a discussion for future, though, if we so desire.
I'd like to repeat that for the record. This building was not included
know,
on
I-
the surplus real estate list.
Just woke me up. I got a question. You're talking about the Tillman House, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
So, I think we should be careful of how much we're gonna dump in it before it next be on the for sale list. Because I was sitting here thinking, are we heading down the same road we had with the, with Hammond Hall? That's what it sounds like. We could be headed there. You start talking about, once we fix something, something else could be going on, or a deeper dive is our cost is just gonna escalate. So, going back, I think Mr. Cutright, I would like to ask him a question on Mr. Cutright, what are the code violations? Are we gonna talk about that later? Or we gonna talk about that later?
What the code?
The violations on this building is what you're
Mhm,
asking?
yes.
Well, the code violation on the Tillman House was structure. We had some structure issues. We had some window issues. We had some deteriorating paint and mold and mildew. They did pressure wash it. We do have a little bit of porch configuration. So you will look at probably they actually going to the hearing next month. If they don't get those violations somewhat in compliance or get a permit to fix, but you're looking at probably 5 violations that will be on that building if it don't get in compliance.
The day is the city in this case.
Yes, okay.
That's not working for me.
Wow. Was that the same reason why we got rid of Hammock Hall? Sort of?
Well, part of the reason we got rid of Hammock Hall at the time when we was doing the structure of the dollar rentals, we was having some issue with trying to figure out exactly the agreement that we had when it came to the leasee or the person that was the caretaker of the building. And when we started looking at the fixtures and some of the structural issues and repairs, the price got to the point where it was a question. And then at the same time, they was trying to, I guess, free up some expense and fixing some things. And one of the things they thought about selling the house. So to answer your question, I can't give you the definite answer of why we got rid of Hammock Hall. But I know we had some issues with the structure of Hammock Hall.
You answered my question. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Also, we are role models. If we expect other people to live up to code requirements, I think the city should be that role model that does as well. It isn't easy to spend money on a historic structure or any structure, but again, we're stewards, and if we're expecting other people, we're going to cite them for code violations, expect them to do the repairs. Why are we different as a city? Question?
What's going on, my man?
Commissioner Turner? Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Jackson.
A couple of questions. How long is this lease? How long is the lease?
Two-year lease, and it's coming up for renewal at the end of this year.
And I guess I want to ask, is there any plans for future sale for this property, or it's kind of all up in the air?
That I can't answer, ma'am.
Mr. Griffith just said it's not on our surplus list at this time.
Okay. Well, I guess
Commissioner Turner? Oh, is that Commissioner McCaskill?
I'm not.
Yeah, she's
Madam
not finished. I'm so sorry. That's my fault. I was looking at the end.
I guess I would just, my last thing would be is, I would think that we do have an obligation for renovation. I mean, to consider the neighborhood, it's definitely an eyesore. And I don't think renovation would be bad for the property, if it was on the surplus or coming up for the surplus list. So that's all.
Thank you. Commissioner McCaskill?
Thank you. The code violation was one of my questions, but is this something that we have to we can hold off discussing tonight? Are there any time constraints on it?
Director Cutright, when is the magistrate hearing?
The magistrate hearing for the city properties is going to be in March. But we can, if we need to be, for give you more time to discuss it, we can move this piece of property to April. We have a little flexibility in moving it to the magistrate hearing.
Okay, just for the pleasure of the commission. Let's see what you all think about that.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes, you may.
The CRA meets bi-monthly, so this board wouldn't have another meeting until April unless a special call is done.
Okay, thank you.
What you just say, April? Cutright.
Yes,
Mr. Cutright, you just said April.
No, it's actually scheduled for March, but he's saying it can be pushed until April.
That's what I thought you said, April, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I'm asking the board, would y'all like to have time to kind of think about this before we make a move on this?
I definitely would like to have some time to think about it if that's all right. I think it would be better to think about it a little bit. I'm not so sure that it's the best interest of the CRA to use CRA funds to remodel this building. I know that it's a building that's in the district and what have you, but I just don't know if that's the proper use of CRA funds or not. I agree with Mr. Griffith that it's probably allowable, but that doesn't mean that we have to do it. I'll go along with the group on whatever y'all want to do, but I think you should sure think about what CRA funds should actually be used for and TIF district funds should be used for, which is something that would theoretically, when it was started, it was started under the premise that you would do things like the big grants and things like that, that you would take that money and put it back into the community to actually improve the tax base and help the TRA, the TIF district funds grow, or either at least pay back the money as you spin it out of it. And it was never intended to be, for lack of a better word, a slush fund for to do projects that we didn't really want to do out of another pot. But I think that over the years, some of that's got away with it, and a very small percentage of it is actually going to what it needs to be going to, which is improve the district. And I know that it could be said that that fixing the Tillman House is an improvement to the district, but if the city's thinking about taking that and using it and doing what they did with the Hammock House or the Hammock Hall, then if that ever happens, how the would get their TIF district money back out of it. When the sale came down, didn't bring enough money to pay them back, then we basically wasted the CRA district money on building in the district that the city may not keep in the future. So I think those are just things that we need to take into consideration when we're making this decision on that money. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any discussion, questions? If not, we have a public comment, Ms. Kitchens.
Allegra Kitchens, 1027 South 12th Street, Palatka, Florida. First of all, comparing the Tillman House to Hammock Hall is like comparing pecans to Cadillacs. Hammock Hall was a commercial building used for meetings, built in the 50s. The Tillman House is a significant addition to the South Historic District and is listed as one of the buildings that helped it become the South Historic District. The Tillman House was built in the 1880s. The Tillman House has been renovated and restored by the Art League over the years many, many times. Florida Pest Control about 4 or 5 years ago or less donated $10,000 to tent the house for termites. Prior to that, in the 90s and early 2000s, definitely in the 90s, the Art League got grants. They repainted the house. They repaired the windows. They did a lot of work. To say it brings nothing to the district is a load. And you know a load of what? That is a big draw, just like the golf course is a draw, like the airport is a draw, like the Larimer is a draw, like the Bronson House is a draw. It brings tourists to Palatka. It brings people downtown to Palatka. At the Christmas house alone, which runs from before Thanksgiving to after New Year's, several years ago, the minimum number of people that attended during that short period of time coming from out of town was 7,000 people coming into downtown Palatka. That is not insignificant to the tax base when you talk about sales tax, when you talk about bed and breakfast tax, and when you talk about publicity for the city, it's very significant. Further, this is in the South Historic District, and the money for the CRA is to repair the houses in that area and repair the blight. The problem with this house is there's an underlying behind the scenes, not with the city government, but there's an underlying thing where a developer is waiting in the background, wanting to get this house and build something and tear it down, build condos. You all don't know that probably. I know it. But this house is very important to the historic district. Certain number of houses you have to be in the district to qualify. The other thing is, talking about, oh, we got to get rid of all our city property, get rid of city property. But let me tell y'all something. When you get a grant and you have to match it with dollars, where do you think those dollars come from? They come from the assessed value of your property, whether it's taxable or not. The assessed value goes as a match for your grants. The more city-owned property you get rid of, the less money you have to match for grant money. So y'all better think long and hard about this. You've got the money from the sale of Hammock Hall. And as to Mr. Turner's remark about if this house sells, if it sells, you'll do just like you did Hammock Hall. The majority of the money will come back into the TIF. What's the darn problem? Fix the house up. I don't suggest no way put it on surplus. It's not surplus. Fix the house up. If you decide 4 or 5 years down the road to sell it, you get more money for it if it's fixed up. Mr. Cutright, I believe, said there was 5 codes violations. This takes care of 3 of them at least. Let the Art League deal with it, get historic grants, get it fixed up. You got till April. Codes Board meets the third Tuesday of April. You meet the second Monday of April or the first Monday. No problem. Save the house. It's significant to the district. No brainer. You got the money coming in from Hammock Hall. Put it on this house. Go for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Commissioner Turner?
I didn't really mean to offend Miss Kitchens because I I wasn't advocating what the city does with their property. I guess I didn't communicate well. My only, thing that I was advocating for is I wasn't sure if it was, if we should be spending CRA monies on Tillman House. I wasn't advocating that you sold it or that we didn't fix it up or whatever. I'm just saying I didn't know that it was, if it was proper, we used the CRA money to do it. I just wanted to try and clear that up a little.
Thank you. Does anybody, Mr. Griffith, do you want to speak to the fact that it is a proper or improper use of CRA funds to put money back into the structure, which have been used in the past, actually? South Tip funds.
Yeah, it is. And I'll just reiterate, even if you don't want to consider Tillman House, you really need to consider a motion which budgets the additional revenue that was realized. You could simply put it into capital outlay for all we care. It just needs to go into a line item. And we can bring this back at your April meeting if that's the pleasure of the board.
Commissioner
Well, I think,
Oh,
Madam
sorry,
Mayor,
yes, Commissioner Turner.
I really think that it would be better to put it in capital outlay at this time, and then that would give us time to decide, the CRA time to decide at maybe the April meeting on if they want to go through with this or whatever. I think Commissioner previously made a very good point that this is kind of quick to do this, and I agree with her. Thank you.
No, that'll, we can just go with what we have here.
I can understand that people feel rushed. Hammock Hall sold a while ago.
doing?
Oh, I'm sorry, who was there? Commissioner, excuse me, Hammock Hall sold a little bit ago. We were just waiting for the final numbers. So we knew this was coming. The house continues to deteriorate. It's not going to improve and age well over time. These repairs need to be done. And again, we should be a role model for the community at large. So I think postponing is postponing, but I think it doesn't hurt to just get things done sometimes. Anybody else have thoughts? Anybody want to make a motion about whether to allocate the funds to Tillman House or put them into the capital improvements line item?
I make a motion to put them in the capital improvement line item.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposition? Nay. Okay, we move on. Thank you. Next we have Revitalized Historic Palatka's request for funding for planters along St. John's Avenue. Is Mr. Hafner coming up? Okay. Okay, thank you. Yes, he is. Okay. Give your name and address, please.
Small group, help we can get. But that's what this is all about. Doing it. We really like to get these.
Cannot hear.
Is that correct? So the intent was to get these out and actually place some of the azaleas that we're going to be selling in some of these pots for folks to look at and be able to purchase and so forth. Not the pots, the azaleas. So that's our intent. We would certainly appreciate your help in helping us accomplish this.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions of Mr. Hafner? I'm waiting to see if anybody on Zoom. Okay.
How much do those planters cost?
Commissioner, there are various sizes, but the ones we previously purchased, which are about yay tall, were $700 a piece just for the planter. And then it takes a specific potting soil mix that goes inside of it. So I'd estimate somewhere around $800 a unit.
$800 each?
Yes, sir.
They have a large water reservoir as well, so that the plants retain water. Commissioner Borman?
Do we have any, I guess, renditions of it, and what it looked like, any kind of pictures or?
There's one at the corner of 7th and St. John's Avenue,
There's
Sonny.
actually some in place on the.
I have some in my phone, actually, so that's not gonna help.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, well, so with around 700 apiece, you're not gonna get many of those plants. I'm just trying to see what they look like in the locations of them.
Ms.
But I
Grant,
see
can
where
you
you-
pull up that
You
location?
got
and street
general
view?
locations on the, right up.
So while she's pulling that up, this is something you've done in the past, and Revitalize Historic Palatka actually volunteers to replenish the plants. We budget a small amount annually because it's over and above what the general fund does for maintenance downtown. I think the request was specific to the 4 blocks that aren't getting touched with the upcoming streetscape project.
Yeah.
So RHP was looking to do something in the 400, 300, 200, and 100 block.
Correct.
Obviously, this is going to be replicated to some extent with the streetscape project, because we're looking at having less cutouts in the sidewalk for planters and having more raised planters just to improve the walkability of downtown.
There's one right there.
Yep. Thank you, Sonny.
Oh, we got there.
Go- Yes, and also Ms. Jackson, and I'm not sure who was up first, but Ms. Jackson, and then we'll go to Commissioner McCaskill.
And how many planters is that, Mr. Hackman? How many planters did you say total?
As many as we possibly can.
Well,
I mean,
ask for more hope.
Okay, so their request said 40 to 50, but based upon your budget, I would suggest only approving about 10 to 15. Because we're still early on in the year, and what you had allocated for site amenities is currently 15,000. So we should be able to accommodate that with the existing budgeted line.
1 minute, Commissioner McCaskill was on deck first. Commissioner McCaskill?
Oh, I was just going to ask, if this is for the community, and if I could, help out of my, special event funds, if he couldn't, get them. So I guess if you said that they can meet quota for it, I guess you don't need the help. Am I right? Am I
I'm
right?
sorry, I wear hearing aids, I'm having
Get
difficulty.
louder, Mr.
Jonathan,
Haffner did not hear you. I'm
Jonathan,
sorry.
you said that you all have the 15,000 to help him get that already? Can you all hear me?
Anybody hear that?
15,000 is in the budget, site amenities.
Oh, okay.
So 15,000, is that enough to get what he needs? If not, are we allowed to use, am I allowed to use any monies that's in my special event funds to help out?
So Commissioner
very
McCaskill,
generous.
this is Jane West. The special event allocation has to be used for actual events and not the purchase of capital improvements.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. No problem.
Well, we need assistance with the Azalea Festival too,
And
so
I was
look
just
at
gonna
it there.
say, Azalea Festival
Thank
is
you.
happening.
Yeah, and you did get that at the last commission meeting. You did get money for that. Commissioner Borman?
Yes, just the question. So this is what we're dealing with now with the 20,000 for the decorative landscape. That's what we're talking about? So that's 20,000. So you can own, I think it's, the most you can get out of there is 28 planters for the most part.
What you said, 15.
15? Seven?
Oh, he
You
was
got
being
20?
conservative, never mind. I like your bigger number.
Sorry. No, I mean, if you got 20,000 divided by 700.
800, say 800 though for soil,
I
and
wouldn't-
special soil.
But even with, if you did 800, it's still, it shows 28 plants.
So maybe we could say if somebody wanted to entertain a motion to a maximum of X
So-
amount of dollars.
Right, so if it's 20,000, you can get, it's 700. If you did 800, you'd probably get a few less, but it's gonna be in the 20 range, 20-something range,
Mhm.
because it's only
I-
100 difference.
I'll entertain a motion for the maximum amount.
I didn't hear that.
But do you have a max?
You mean the budgeted amount?
Yeah, I was gonna specify in the motion.
I'll entertain a motion for the maximum amount that's in the budget.
Okay, the maximum amount budgeted. Okay. We have a motion?
Wait.
Okay, I'm
wait,
sorry.
I misunderstood. For landscaping in the budget, we have 40,000. And he's requesting 20,000, correct?
Right.
You're suggesting 20,000. So, Commissioner McCaskill, did you hear that?
Okay, can you say it again?
So in the budget, it's showing $40,000. When you said the maximum would be that 40,000, but I want to make sure that we're only entertaining 20,000, correct?
That's what's before us.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Maximum of what's here, correct?
Yeah, it will be a big help. If we can get that many, it will be a big help, you
You
know?
said 40 to 50.
Oh, yeah, if we could get
So-
40 to 50,
so
but that
you-
is, that's a large expense, no question about that.
Sound like you might have to get a discount on them if you can get the 40 to 50.
So
Well-
Commissioner McCaskill, your motion was to the maximum of the budget, and that's 40,000.
So,
So just to
And-
clarify,
so 20,000. I need to say 20,000, right?
right?
Okay, so just change the numbers but the maximum amount to 20,000.
Okay. Is that okay, Ms. West, for her to correct it?
Yeah, so the motion is to approve this funding request for a maximum of 20,000 for the purchase of planters and dirt.
Correct. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, thank you. Are you also going to maintain the plants as we go along in time? Because that's a bigger factor for me as somebody who does that on my block.
We always have, and I'm sure one of our goals will be to also have some of the merchants downtown
Adopt.
participate, adopt them and help in maintaining these things and other organizations that we can get to help us out on it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, are we gonna have anything to kind of lock them down? Lock 'em-
Oh, then you try to.
A lot of dirt. I think
They're
it,
happy and none of them.
yeah, I think it'd take a forklift, Commissioner.
I think that's an important part to pin down now, whose responsibility is going to be to keep them up. You just have planters everywhere, and then it's just going to be a sidewalk hazard, honestly. But if you have them up there, we're paying for a significant amount. I think we should have something in place for who's going to be responsible.
Well,
Because
RHP's intent is to maintain the things. And again, we're a small group of folks. We try our best to earn money however we can by sponsoring events like wine strolls and things like that. So certainly any money that we make in any of our events that we do will be put back into the city of Palatka, and this would be one of the places that will be put back.
So are you saying you're going to actually maintain?
Yeah.
What you're saying
They're
now?
going to take
All
the
right,
lead
that's what
and make sure they're done, and even if they recruit others.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Now we're going to report Small Business Development Center, Mr. Paul.
Rick Paul at 1100 Reed Street for the Small Business Development Center. Good evening, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. In front of you is a quarterly report. I've been changing this around a little bit to simplify it. When I first got here, it was 15 some odd pages and hard to read, and it's still a little hard to read. So we're talking about the impact report that you should have in front of you. The main thing at this point is the timing of it. So you guys are on a fiscal year. Normally we report on a calendar year. So your fiscal year begins October 1st. So this is for the first quarter of your fiscal year. The question is, I always report year to date when I bring you up to speed, which I'm about to do. So are you happy with the dates on the report being last quarter? Or would you like just to do it on a calendar year basis or bring it up to year to date like I normally do verbally with you? Is there a preference?
Does anyone have a preference? I don't think so.
Okay, so we'll just leave it as is?
Yeah.
Okay. So at this time frame, there were 6 to 8 projects that I thought were going to go through, but a very quick recap of some of them. Well, it's a little strange, but one of my clients who had a really good business was getting a loan for 50,000, but her brother got killed in a bicycle wreck on A1A in St. Augustine, so that's been delayed. I did have a deal go through for about 200, but I don't know if I'm going to get credit for that one or not, because the clients become unresponsive after they get what they want because we have a free service. So that's 2. The third one is even better, I guess you could say. The loan actually got approved, and before he could sign the paperwork, the building he was buying burned to the ground. That was 750,000. Had a disaster loan of 600,000 that FEMA never picked up. And right now I've got a $125,000 loan. Somebody's got plenty of collateral, plenty of equity, but the banker never got back to him. So I'm trying to rework that one. So out of the 6 to 8 loans that were, pretty much a sure bet, pretty much none of them have come out at this point. Anyhow, I will continue to update this and bring you current information as it becomes available. The main thing I'd like to talk to you tonight is, of course, the CRA meeting that we're having on February 20th at Azalea City Brewing Company. This is where we're going to be talking about the business district. Again, the reason behind it is to increase awareness of the CRA, attract new businesses to the CRA, retain the existing businesses that are there, improve relationships amongst the city and the businesses and between the businesses. I will start it off with a quick round of introductions where everybody can have about 30 seconds to say how they can help the businesses that are there. But the focus is on the future, trying to basically replicate, I guess, what's happening from, say, the 700 block to about the 900 block, where things are moving along quite nicely, to see if we can expand that growth and that viability, up and down the entire stretch of the business district. So it's on the future of the business district. And I appreciate Jonathan for setting this thing up. Do you have any questions about the networking event on the flyer in front of you? I invited you all to the last CRA meeting. You all said you could attend.
Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Paul? Doesn't sound like it. Thank you.
Fantastic. I look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Update on the CRA District's code enforcement inspection, Mr. Cutright?
So ain't it? I saw it. You slow. So you do everything fast, I see. Yes. Yes. Right. Back in October of 2023, the Code Enforcement Department did a initiative in the TIF area to try to look for mid to low level violations to bring them up to speed. Now, this is just for your mid to low level violations. We do have several properties in the TIF district that have major issues and concerns, and they already been in our works, and we've been working those programs, those violations already. And from October to January, we did about 460 properties and businesses in that area. My officers did 4 hours on every other Saturday, walk the street to kind of see the violations. We actually had a total of 212 homes and businesses that had properties that had issues. 39 of them had cases that was at least 2 to 3 violations per. 29 had probably 1 violation, low level violations, mold and mildew or stuff like that. The major concerns in that area that we walked was mold and mildew, deteriorating paint, and grass and debris. Then that's right there is just the low hanging fruit that we thought we could address the issues as we speak and try to get those fixed without going to the hearing. Half of these properties that we are going to the hearing in the next 3 months. We have put door knockers on the low level offenses that hopefully they'll come into compliance before they get to the hearing. Most of the property owners that's in that district has either reached back out to us to kind of address the concerns or give us reasons or give us ideas of how they're going to fix the problem. So I do think that initiative that we took back in October was a success. We would like to continue it, but as you can see, funding for overtime officers on Saturday can be a premium sometimes. So if that's the case and you want us to continue, we need to find some money from the TIF district if it's possible. And I'm open to any questions that you may have.
And so you do have before you a draft interlocal services agreement for this fiscal year. Has this been distributed?
It just hasn't been distributed to Commissioner Turner or Commissioner McCaskill.
Okay. So at Jonathan's request last week, I drafted this agreement to basically try and capture the full extent of the services that city staff was providing to the benefit of the CRA TIF districts. And you can see here, Eddie's team with code enforcement, yeah, they do a lot of the manpower, but there are other departments within the city that also assist, the city manager's office, the city attorney's office, the finance department, the city clerk, public works, and the public information officer. So my understanding is that there is already a lump sum that has been budgeted by the CRA for city services. It's just a matter of how to divide it. My recommendation would be the overwhelming amount of those funds should go to code enforcement because they're the kind of the boots on the ground that are noticing the violations and shepherding them through the special magistrate process. But there are other departments that are helping to benefit the CRA and its work and mission.
Mr. Griffith.
Yeah, so I just want to add to this, and Attorney West did kind of throw this together last minute, but it's become an industry standard between redevelopment agencies and the local unit of government of which, they're occupying to put this agreement in place, because the test is a CRA should only be doing it when it's over and above what you normally do. That's why they've been doing this as an overtime exercise, because it's easy to track and it passes that test. I'll point out within your existing budget, you currently have in excess of 150,000, which goes from the TIF districts to the general fund. Excuse me, I grabbed the wrong number there for downtown. You got it there, Miss Cardy?
Prepared it earlier.
Okay, so it's 21,000 in the downtown. It's 27,000 in the south. Or that's utility. 6,000 in the south. And then in the north, a very similar line, right around 6,000 or 7,000. So this would be over and above that. So at your next meeting in April, what you'll see in addition to this is a budget amendment, which captures what Director Cutright anticipates to be those true costs to provide for those inspection services in the TIF districts. And again, it's just being distributed for your review and consideration. It'll be on your next agenda.
So if there's anything that you notice in your review over the next 2 months, please get those comments over to Mr. Bell so we can work it into the contract and get it posted on the agenda for your discussion.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have a question? Any questions? Thank you. Financial report as of December 31st, 2023, Ms. Cardy.
Oh, okay. For the 3 months of the quarter ended December 31, 2023, the TIF CRA revenues have been actualized. And what that means is on page 74, that we have now received 819,421. Okay, thank you. Of course, I can't see when I do that. All right. We do have the other revenues, that 131,908, and we did receive contribution for benches, 2,200. So that gave us an additional 134,108. So the total revenues that TIF/CRA has received at the end of December or are entitled to is $953,529. And moving on to page 2, which would be 75 in your book. The expenditures are very low. And that's, starting to bring up a concern at some point because we do need to spend these funds. So at the end of the 3 months ended December 31, 2023 for the downtown district, we've only spent 14,301. And that's out of a budget of 1,460,000 when you look at the transfers and so forth that need to be done. The South Historic District has spent 2,303 on page 3, department total. And that's out of a budget of 185,000. And then finally, North Historic on page 4. As of December, we've spent 1,589. Okay, so at the end of 3 months that ends in ended December 31, 2023, we generated revenues of a total of 953,000, but we've only spent 18,000. So we're at a profit, meaning that we have more revenues than the expenditures. As of December 31, 2023, 935,000. So I did want to point out that when we look at the, there is a possibility that we do need to start allocating funds to project and spending the money so that we do not jeopardize the CRA itself. Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Anybody have any questions?
I do. What is the time frame on spending the money?
Well, realistically, and hopefully next meeting, they're going to allow me to give more information. But realistically, we're supposed to spend our money within that year, whatever we've budgeted. Also, the funds that we do not spend, we are supposed to go through a process of designating projects to spend that money. And, each year we should be held accountable for the monies that we do not spend in that year that we say we're going to spend.
Now, can that unspent money go into a reserve account that?
No, it is not. I mean, it's you're jeopardizing the CRA itself, but I'm not prepared to go into detail right now. Hopefully next time I will.
Actually, to that question, so into what we call a reserve account, to where after you've allocated everything, no, you can hold a small percentage, but what you do not spend within a year, statutorily, you have to reallocate and spend it within 3 years. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't, in essence, bank funding for a capital project that you guys are working on 2 to 3 years out, which is something that you've done with the downtown TIF with St. John's Avenue. You know that project is going to be quite expensive, so you've been setting aside funding for different phases. And that's part of the reason that you're starting to see some of the funds kind of stack up. Now, some of the projects, you asked another question earlier about what's the timeline for spending these. That's the legal response. There's also a question about what do you have on the books in your work plan. So what you have in your work plan, the two largest items between all districts are your building improvement grant category, which the first cycle is in advertisement right now. And those applications should be coming in the next couple months. So you'll have before you, after the evaluation committee meets and makes a recommendation, probably a significant amount of requests to spend money. The other is for continuing the sidewalk repairs that you all have been doing in all three TIF districts, excuse me. The same contractor is used for the city projects, and that's Mr. Geck, and he's currently been pulled to the 8th and 7th Street project. So it's just a matter of he can only work on so much with his crews. Now, Mr. McMillan couldn't be here tonight. His wife's sick, but he did advise me that the next place that Mr. Geck is going after St. John's Avenue is to move back into the TIF district, specifically north and south. So you'll see those $50,000 lines get spent down, hopefully some before your April meeting.
Anybody have any additional questions? With that said, and do we have an idea of the allocation of those funds for sidewalk and those other things, Mr. Griffith? Or should we be contemplating like a revision of the facade grant? We had one a long time ago. I'm not advocating one way or the other, but it would certainly to be updated, revised. But is it another opportunity to do some of those things possible?
Those are all things that were within your CRA plan. I'd probably just encourage all of you to look at your CRA plan and see what items you want to bring back before to the April meeting. And then Ms. Cardy can probably bring a total lump sum amount per district for you to reallocate and direct us to process budget amendments.
Thank you.
And we'll send you a link to the CRA plan.
Anybody have any other questions? Thank
Yes,
you.
yes, ma'am, Madam
Oh,
Mayor.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Turner.
Can we use capital monies that we just set aside for capital for the building improvement grant if we ended up getting more grants that are more applications that were approved than what we had money to fund? Or is that something we could do?
Mhm. Yes, we could increase the budget for that. And
I just didn't
allocate
know
more
if we
money
could
for
take
that.
the capital line item and use it towards that or not.
Mr. Griffith.
Yeah, it would just be a separate motion where you would request a budget amendment, taking a certain amount of funds from the capital outlay line and moving it to the building improvement grant line.
Thank you, sir.
Is that something we want to entertain, or do we want to wait till the April meeting and see what applications come in first? What do we think?
Yes, ma'am. I think we need to see what applications come in first.
Okay, that's.
Yes,
makes
I
sense to
agree.
me. Okay, everybody agrees on that. Thank you. Other business, discussion, direction, community input, 300 North 11th Street, the Belton property that we just closed on the city this week. Mr. Griffith?
So yeah, the good news is now the city holds title to that property. It's within the downtown TIF. It is within the envelope of the A. Philip Randolph Transportation Hub project and the North 11th Street project. So we wanted to bring it back before the CRA board to see if you wanted to potentially hold a public workshop to get the community's input on what they would like to see done with that building. And it may also be an opportunity to kind of educate the public about some of the historic significance of the building.
I think that's a great idea because it is so significant historically to the city that we should have the community involved to give them an opportunity to learn more about that history and share some of the great photos we have so people can see its legacy.
Would the board be agreeable to a special workshop in March at the Price Martin Center?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Is there a time of day that would be preferred?
Well, I think the evening is best for most people to get community participation.
Okay.
Early evening.
that's probably enough to go on. I think we can reach out to all of you separately and try and find a date that works best for the majority of you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody have any additional questions?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner McCaskey?
No, ma'am.
Yep.
No, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Do we have any other items for the CRA board? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn.